People are kicking off over a 7-1 bench split again. The bomb squads are under scrutiny. People up in arms. Yes, Matt Williams is at it. He's the OG of complaining about a 7-1 bench split. I'll come back to him in a minute, but he's not alone. There's a lot of people doing this. And I think for what it's worth, what's going on here is there's a lot of people struggling to come to terms with the manner of defeat for Ireland. I think this has messed with some people's heads a little bit, because I think we all thought the game was going to be fairly close. The fact it was a beatdown and just a massive flex of power from France has scrambled some people's brains a little bit, and they're trying to make sense of it. And they're making sense of it by processing it into a complaint about how benches are composed. And I mean, I'd love to know what you think. It's a really interesting talking point. Are the people that have got a problem with it just jealous that their nation isn't able to flex the same power muscle? Or are the concerns legitimate? Are there safety issues? Should World Rugby get involved and limit the number of forwards that can be on a bench? That's what some people are suggesting. For what it's worth, my thought on this is that I think there's a fundamental lack of understanding of how a 7-1 bench split works in the psyche of a team and within the tactics of an 80-minute rugby match. And I've got a lot I want to say on that, so I will. But I think it's a fascinating conversation to have, and I'm really interested to see what you have to say. So please leave me your comment down below. Give the video a thumbs up as well. That helps me reach other rugby fans that don't even know I exist. I'm Tim and this is Egg Chasers, and this whole operation is just me. So your help with the thumbs up and subscribing would be absolutely brilliant. Now, we know where this started with the bomb squad from South Africa, an innovation from Rassie Erasmus and his coaches, which they used brilliantly before, during and since the Rugby World Cup in their successful campaign there. France against Italy in round 3 of the Six Nations used it, and then used it again against Ireland at the weekend, and a fantastic win for them in Dublin. Now, fundamentally, and just big picture, I love the number of different ways that you can approach a rugby match as a coach and as a team, and the number of different ways that you can win. There's all those variables that you can play with: scrums, lineouts, mauls, breakdown, offloads, territory, possession, width, power, speed. All these different things you can play with and amp up or turn down depending on the skill set that you have and the type of players that you have. And that is the job of a great coach, is to find which ones of those are best to try and put on a pedestal and which ones you try and minimize. And the same goes for trying to work out how to beat an opponent. And the fact that there are so many different ways to win a rugby match is one of the most beautiful things about the sport. And when rugby is left alone, what you see is an amazing evolution of actions and reactions. And I say when it's left alone, because quite often what happens is someone comes up with some innovation which works for a bit, and then World Rugby come in and go, whoa, hold on, that's working too well. We need to change that. We need to stop that. And what they don't allow to happen, they change the rules and then end up causing 3 or 4 other problems that they didn't realise that they were going to cause by trying to solve that one problem in the first place. When if they just left it alone, the coaches and the players and the teams would have naturally found a way to combat it, would have found the chink in the armour and would have worked it out. And that long term, over not just over 80 minutes, but over a season, over many seasons, it's like a giant chess game happening. And that's one of the things I love watching. It's one of the reasons this channel exists, because I love getting into the weeds on what is going on at rugby fundamentally. And I think, like I say, there's just a big misunderstanding when it comes to a 7-1 bench split. And it's come up again because France used it and had a really, I think it's come up again because France had, I don't think anyone would be talking about it if France had narrowly won. But it was the fact that they absolutely smashed Ireland in that second half that means that some people are saying things like Donncha O'Callaghan, former Ireland international, who's claiming 7-1 benches will change the game forever. He said, quote, "I don't know if a 6-2 bench can beat a 7-1 bench anymore." Really, Donncha? You don't think a 6-2 bench can beat a 7-1 bench anymore? Despite the fact that 18 months ago, Ireland and their 5-3 bench beat South Africa's 7-1 bench at the Rugby World Cup. Despite the fact that the game that happened at the weekend, France changed 6 forwards for 6 forwards because one of their forwards had to play as a centre. And Ireland had 6 forwards that replaced 6 forwards. Which one of those camps would you have rather been in? If I didn't tell you the result and I said, right, you've got a choice here. You can be the team with 6 forwards that all replace forwards, or you can be the team with 7 forwards, but one of them has to play centre. I know Donnachar O'Callaghan would have gone 6-2, please, every time. So I don't think it makes sense. Gregor Townsend, he's been at this World Rugby Shaping the Game panel thing, basically throwing ideas around with a load of people in and around the game. And he was asked his opinion, and he said, I don't think the bench was set up to suddenly have a new forward pack coming on. He's probably right, but as I say, the sport evolves over time, and we are where we are now. And I'm really interested to see what Gregor Townsend and other coaches do to try and neutralise this threat, find the weakness in it, and expose it. And you know what? 7-1 bench splits might be something we talk about in years to come as, oh, do you remember when people did the 7-1 bench split? Oh, yeah, that came a cropper in the end, didn't it? And I want to see what Gregor Townsend can do to combat it. It's fair to say not everyone is being critical. There are some journalists, there are some pundits and the like who are, I think, coming up with quite reasoned takes on it. My thought on it is that it's great. It gives us something to talk about. It's interesting. It's a different way of trying to make the most of your strengths. So there are people saying that, but then there are lots of people that aren't. And principal among them, Matt Williams, who let's just remind ourselves of what he said when South Africa first used the 7-1 bench split.
What South Africa have done is abused player safety issue, and it should never have been allowed to get to this. All World Rugby had to say was 3 of your bench have to be recognised backs. Right? It is a blight on the game that needs to be stopped.
I don't get that. World Rugby should insist on 5 forwards and 3 backs on the bench. How are they going to enforce that exactly? Because Oscar Jegu just played half an hour of international rugby at centre. Ben Earl played at the weekend for England at centre. You can't tell me Quacker Smith isn't capable of playing as an international winger, centre, fullback, or practically anywhere. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the game in 2025 where players have incredible skill sets that mean, and I think what the game at the weekend showed is that maybe some of the fears about a 7-1 split are unfounded because players do have a skill set which is more transferable than we think. These are athletes and rugby players first, rather than people that are forwards or backs.
They are opening themselves up to karma. And believe me, there is karma in rugby. Karma means if you only got 1 back on your bench and you get two injuries or a sin bin or a send-off, you're in serious trouble.
I don't understand how you can hold those 2 opinions at the same time. It shouldn't be allowed. Also, it could really, really be bad. After the Italy game, Matt Williams said this. This was a couple of weeks ago when France first did their 7-1.
Incredibly discriminating against backline players. Brutality of scrummaging against the finesse. And World Rugby needs to act for the good of the global game.
Do you know what? If I were a French centre that was thinking I was good enough to be in the international setup, I might be looking at Oscar Jegu playing in my position for half an hour and looking okay and thinking, maybe I need to upskill myself a little bit. Maybe I need to be able to tackle a little bit harder like Jegu does, or be a breakdown threat as well as all the things that a centre does, so that he can't just come and take my position in an emergency. Might be a thought. And then after the game at the weekend, finally, Matt Williams tripled down on his issues.
7-1 bench is all about scrum penalties. Now, the scrum didn't come into it today.
Yeah.
So the 7-1s, as far as getting scrum penalties, failed. As far as doing something in the line-out, it failed. What the 7-1 bench did do today was provide that French team with incredible power. It's not the way the game should go. So
he's saying that a 7-1 bench split is all about scrum penalties, only there weren't any scrum penalties in this game. But that, I mean, make that make sense. I don't get it. Here's some facts about the game that we watched at the weekend. One of France's 7 forwards, Oscar Jegu, came on for Pierre-Louis Barassi and played at centre. One of France's 7 forwards that came on with 4.5 minutes to go. Hugo Oradou replaced Thibaut Flamont on 75 minutes. So one of their 7 forwards only played a few minutes, and in those few minutes, Ireland scored 2 tries, so tell me where the advantage is there. And one of the 7 forwards had to play up as a back, whereas Ireland had 6 forwards who all came on and played more. Well, none of them played as little as 4 minutes, like Oradou. I think at minimum they played 12 minutes, and they all came on in the position that they played. The biggest difference, and I think this is about the total misunderstanding about how and why a 7-1 bench split works in the psyche and tactically in a game. France brought 5 changes on. Miafu and Bai and Marchand and Aldegheri, and might have been one more that I'm forgetting. Can't remember it now. Doesn't matter. They brought them on 48 minutes. And the following 10, 12 minutes, France dominated Ireland and effectively won the game, scored some crucial tries and just overpowered them. They dropped the hammer, went through the gears, won the match after they brought their players on. What did Simon Easterby do? When the game was already lost, he brought the bulk of his forwards off the bench. 68 minutes, he brought them on. What happened when he brought his bench on? The dynamic totally changed, and Ireland dropped the hammer and dominated the last 10 minutes and scored a couple of tries. So the biggest change here is that Fabien Galthié had the confidence to put his players on sooner, and it had a really positive effect on the game. You had a completely fresh Emmanuel Meafu running at Caelan Doris, who'd been on for 50-odd minutes, and he just ran over him. Ireland waited, didn't have the confidence to bring their players on, and then they had fresh legs against tired legs, and it worked for them too. So the bigger question is, why did Ireland wait till 68 minutes and Fabien Galthié was happy to put his on at 48 minutes? And I think that comes down to the way that a team manages its resources over a much longer period of time. It wasn't about this 80 minutes. It was about the last 2 years. France get a load of stick because they don't send their best players to the Southern Hemisphere, because the top 4 team finishes when it finishes. It's not that France are avoiding playing in the Southern Hemisphere, but one of the consequences of their top 14 season finishing so late is they send a load of kids to Argentina, to New Zealand, to Australia, to South Africa, and that gives them incredible amounts of experience. And some of those players have played a really significant part in this Six Nations Championship. So maybe it works out better for France. Also, look at Rassie Erasmus. He has used over 50 players in the last year. He constantly is rotating and he's constantly sharing the minutes around the squad so that whichever players he picks, there's very little difference in performance. Whereas Ireland have not given minutes to many, many players, and the chickens came home to roost because they are not confident to put their replacements on except for 10 minutes at the end. Oh, we can't give Cian Healy any more than 10 minutes. Yeah, and you haven't got confidence in Jack Boyle because you haven't given him any game time. So I think that's been Ireland's issue, and that's why they got beaten at the weekend, not because France had 7 forwards on the bench or had more power or any of that. It's much more fundamental than that. And the other thing that happens, and I think this is absolutely crucial and so misunderstood, the crucial part about bringing on your players, like Rassie Erasmus does it with his 7-1 bomb squad, brings them on after 45 to 50 minutes in that window, as Fabien Galthié did here. What that does, it doesn't only give you fresh legs when those players come on. It means the players that are playing and starting the match are going out there from minute 1 empty in the tank. They can just go and just almost try and fail. Like, I'm going to try and empty the tank as quick as I can. And when you look at the defensive performance from France in that first half, doesn't that make sense? The confidence to just go into some dark places, go into the pain cave and completely end yourself with a massive defensive shift, getting off the floor, getting back in the defensive line, flying out again, making another hit, getting back up, getting back in the line. That takes its toll. And if you've got to do that for 65, 70 or 80 minutes, you're going to manage that very differently than if you're going 45 minutes and I'm done, let's go. And that is the difference. And that is the element of this. When all the people are talking about the 7-1 split and all, that's the bit that's overlooked, is when Ireland changed their 6 forwards and when France changed their 5 forwards. Like I say, because one of them only played a couple of minutes and one of them was a back. So I think so many of the takes on this bench split are completely wrong. That is my thoughts. I've tried to make an argument. I'm willing to be wrong and be persuaded otherwise, which is where you come in. And I would love it if you would get stuck in the comments and let me know. And I'll see you on the next one.